Hey everybody, this is Mr. Mob coming at you again with another APUSH video. We're continuing our tour through topic 8.8, the Vietnam War. Last time we were here, we were talking about some of the challenges that American soldiers are going to be facing in their attempts to rid South Vietnam of communism. And part of it came from the fact of the Ho Chi Minh Trail resupplying the Viet Cong, and really the difficulty of trying to figure out who you can trust in South Vietnam. Remember, the idea being is that the VC are not soldiers. They're not wearing uniforms like the NVA. They could be, a teenage boy. They could be an elderly woman. I mean, they could be anybody. And, the VC do not come out and openly fight you. They set up booby traps. They engage in sniper attacks. So you never really know, who you can trust. And, when you're fighting the enemy, the NVA, you're massacring the NVA, but they keep invading. The VC has supply chains that are, dismantled. They just immediately rebuild them. They keep coming back and coming back and coming back. So if you are on the ground, it seems like, that by some metrics that you're winning, you're able to destroy a lot of stuff and kill a lot of people, but you're not in reality making any real tangible gains. But despite the reality that's on the ground, you're going to see a very different picture presented by the officer corps and the White House through the media. American forces are going to be led on the ground through most of the mid-1960s by General William Westmoreland. And he and the White House are going to be consistently painting a positive picture of what America is doing in Vietnam. A lot of it is going to be predicated on, kill rates, casualty numbers of the enemy, stuff like that. And the basic gist from Westmoreland and President Johnson was that, victory is just around the corner for the United States military, that they just need, a few more months, a few thousand more soldiers, and they're going to win this thing. And it's kind of like a repeated message that happens again and again and again throughout the mid-1960s. And so, more soldiers get sent over, more fighting. It keeps going, and more soldiers keep getting sent, and more soldiers are dying. And, there's this sense of we just need a little bit more time. We just need a few more soldiers. And, it's starting to paint a reality that are starting to paint a picture that is not the reality on the ground, and the American people are starting to realize that more and more. And some of the folks that are going to be most affected are those that are going to be drafted to go over to Vietnam. When the war starts, most of the folks that go over are going to be enlisted men. But as the war drags on into especially 1966, 67, 68, most of these folks are now going to be going over there are going to be drafted. And note, the draft is going to have a major problem in terms of how disproportionately poor people and people of color are going to be sent over via the draft. And the main reason for that is that if you were a full-time college student, you got a deferment from having to fulfill your military draft responsibilities. And, of course, who would, especially in those days, were more likely to be going to college full-time? Middle class to wealthy white kids. And so, the poor, people of color, disproportionately going over to fight in Vietnam. These folks are going to be seeing, once again, lots of death and destruction. They're going to see their friends killed. They're going to be traumatized. And once again, the paranoia. The sense that, you're just kind of, like a hamster on a treadmill. You're just going and going and going, and you're not making any progress. You're not going anywhere. And, that 12-month enlistment, that tour of duty, if you will, in country, is going to be agonizing. Soldiers, as time goes on, will lose and lose morale. They're going to be counting the days till they get to go back home. They know they're not making any progress. The process is so traumatic that for some of these soldiers, they find an outlet through drugs. For many of these soldiers, this is the first time they ever exposed to drugs, and more than just a few are going to come home, unfortunately, as drug addicts. So, the question kind of becomes like, what are we doing over there? What is the purpose of what's going over there? And as the war drags on, we see more and more anti-war demonstrations. Young people are beginning to rise up and say, what are we doing? Why are we over there? What's the purpose? We're napalming villages. Children are getting killed. Civilians are getting, wiped out. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying over there. And for what purpose? What's the point? We're not winning. We're not making a difference. We're not doing what is the right thing over there. And as the draft becomes more and more popular in terms of utilization by the government, it creates even more contentiousness. And a lot of these demonstrations are going to be found at America's college campuses. And so you're going to start to see this emerging clash of values in America on the war. You're going to see an emerging group of people that are going to be strongly opposed to the war. We're going to call these folks doves. And these are folks that wanted out of the war. They wanted out immediately. And these folks tended to be of the younger baby boom generation. They tended to be the college students. And these also tended to be the folks to some degree that overlapped with what will be the emerging hippie counterculture movement. Though they're not one and the same, there tended to be a lot of overlap with it. And this is going to come into direct conflict with the hawkish folks of America that tended to be older, more of that World War II generation that tended to believe that you didn't question the government, you were hardline anti-communist, you supported the military and the government no matter what. And this is going to lead to a clash of cultures. And in many respects, that clash of culture is going to be taking place at the dinner table. You've got, that father that was a World War II veteran and, dressed conservatively, had that buzzed haircut, supported Johnson, supported the war, traditional values. And at the same time, that dinner table, there's the son that's got the long hair and the hippie clothes and, is refusing to support the war and may have burned a draft card and, was, talking about how we need to question the government. We need to question our values. What are we doing over there? So this war is going to start to rip America apart, ideologically and from a generational perspective and a socioeconomic and racial perspective as well. So you're going to see more and more folks opposing the war, more and more folks chanting, hell no, we won't go. More and more folks that are going to be, really condemning the actions of President Johnson, questioning, what is the purpose of this? What is the value of this? Why are you prioritizing this? As we are spending more and more money in Vietnam in what is becoming more and more clearly a failing mission to achieve our objective, that's money that could have, and for many, should have gone to domestic programs under the Great Society. This could have done, seemingly could have done wonders to try to, rebuild the crumbling urban infrastructure, provide for more social programs, try to heal the wounds from recent racial rioting in America. But it's not going to come to pass, in part mostly because of a doubling down, tripling down of Lyndon Johnson on fighting this war in Vietnam. He is absolutely committed to not letting South Vietnam fall to communism under his watch and therefore letting the domino theory play out. And by the time we get into early 1968, America is now thoroughly divided on the war. And, and so when we get into early 1968, about half of Americans support the war and about half of Americans are opposed to the war. But the turning point of the war is going to be happening in early 1968. And that's going to be taking place on the holiday of Tet. Tet in Southeast Asia is a major holiday. It's kind of like putting together, the Super Bowl and New Year's and the 4th of July all in one big massive holiday. And historically, Tet was observed as a ceasefire day. So there's nobody's fighting. It's a day of a holiday. Ceasefire. And so when we get into 1968, the assumption by the U.S. and the South Vietnamese was that Tet would be observed as another ceasefire holiday. Well, didn't work out that way. The North Vietnamese, the NVA, and the Viet Cong are going to engage in a massive, massive coordinated attack on basically every major military installation all over South Vietnam. If you take a look at this map here, you see those red splotches there. It kind of looks like South Vietnam has measles. These are all places where communist forces will be attacking simultaneously, including the U.S. Embassy in South Vietnam in Saigon that will be temporarily overrun by communist forces. This is going to be a major embarrassment. And even though, yes, the U.S. and South Vietnamese forces will quickly counterattack and it will lead to thousands upon thousands of casualties for the communists, and though the communists do not obtain their objective militarily in this assault, it has a much bigger impact than that. It sends the reality, it sends home the clear reality that any progress that we thought we had made, that the White House and the military brass had made, had been promoting in this war so far, was a lie. It wasn't happening. We have made, in 40 years of massive fighting now, no real progress. And for most Americans now at this point, the general belief was that, we can't win this thing. We cannot achieve victory in Vietnam. And so if there's a growing sentiment that you cannot win in Vietnam, then why are you there? Why can't we pull out of there? Why can't we bring our boys home? And this leads to even more anti-war sentiment, more anti-war protests and demonstrations at college campuses, chanting, protests outside the White House in D.C. Kids, chanting, "Hey, hey, LBJ, how many kids you killed today? Hey, hey, LBJ, how many kids you killed today?" And what we're seeing happening is that the Vietnam War is absolutely crumbling the Johnson presidency. And this was a presidency that, on many levels was seen as a successful presidency that seemed to be destined to be a historically good presidency, effective presidency. This is the administration that had the Civil Rights Act passed, the Voting Rights Act passed, Fair Housing Act passed, creation of Medicare, Medicaid. This is the War on Poverty, the Great Society administration. So there was all of these major domestic achievements that the Johnson administration could hang their hat on, but it's all going to be undone by the failures in Vietnam and the perception of lies coming from the media and a sense that young people are dying for no good reason, and the controversy of the war is ripping us apart socially and culturally. And you can see, in this picture of LBJ, you can just see he's cracking under the pressure, that he cannot make this work. And this is going to have, not just devastating personal effects for Johnson, but it's going to have devastating political effects for Johnson. And we'll take a look at some of those politics and how this is going to play out in the election of 1968 next time. We'll see you then.